For many people, music is their beloved. They yearn for it, it grounds, calms, and inspires them. Melodies and music can expose old feelings and new emotions in us. Music is a noun. We hear and listen to music as notes and silences between notes. When we write about music, it is predominantly to say something about the impact of listening to music. The positive impact of listening to music has been widely studied in the fields of human psychology, neuroscience, education, physiology, and spirituality. Music is a sound stimulation creation. While often seen as something static, birthed in a specific moment, music has a living quality because we value it differently depending on what we are experiencing in a specific time and space. Over time, we may associate a specific song to a specific salient event, and then 10 years later associate that same song to a new salient event. Music's value to us, therefore, and its ability to stimulate our senses, changes based on how and why we interact with it. As our lives unfold, what we actually hear, compute, and analyze about a compositional piece shifts, especially depending on how complex the musical arrangement is. Art is evocative because it causes us to pause. The length of the pause is the power of its effect. Its power is therefore in its own internal pauses, such as silence, gaps between notes, and how we pause when we interact with it. For example, when, based on our mood, we stop at different points in a song. Music has power because we often hear lyrics in new ways with each listen, or we suddenly understand the profound intention of the artist to layer the lyrics, melodies, harmonies, and tempo in a certain manner, whereas before, that intention was lost to us. Music is a piece of art that uses a combination of vibrational elements to say something about a personal experience. A piece of music resonates with a listener when that listener can identify with or see themselves in the artist's rendering of an experience. We can say such things as, "That piece of music moved me, brought me to tears, or helped me to do X action." Music does its magic to us. What if we imagine a world where music is given the ability to not just be an object, but also a subject capable of responding to our deepest longings and listening to our greatest frustrations with the patience of a wise sage? What can we learn about our fears, struggles, confusions, and desires when we give music the power to receive us? What would happen if we pay music a visit, sit on its couch, and start getting stuff off our chests? Isn't that what we do when we seek catharsis listening to music? Don't we listen to music and engage in internal dialogue with the hope that the sensory experience will somehow heal us? Do we ever really speak, even to ourselves, bathing in music, with the desire to not be heard or to release emotions? When we listen to music and vent to ourselves about a bad day, don't we expect that the music will say something that will help us feel better or think differently about that day? Why would we listen to music after a bad day if we don't expect that it will cathartically channel our mood, give us clarity, or help us to vent? It cannot be the case that we simply and only listen to music passively, because when it expresses sound waves, we are often humming the most relevant lyrics for that moment in our lives. We also anticipate music, like when beloveds listen to their beloved. We sing the chorus to the song. We anticipate the bridge. We hum the melody. We hear an unfolding of some aspect of our joy or misery in the song. That is why we listen to songs. They give us something to cling to, something with which to identify. The world feels less lonely because it's obvious that the musician or the band has gone through a similar experience and is expressing it in a way that we cannot. Music gives a voice to the ideas that we may not be able to articulate until we hear them expressed by someone else in music. The best songs say what we feel in a way that we never thought of before. Let's take a single chorus which becomes so predominant in our minds that we hum it over and over and over again for years. This is an example of music that has crept into our very being and set up a home there. It's stopped being a tenant in the condo of our minds because the joy it gives us has made it family. It therefore makes sense to ask questions But what happens when music becomes a noun that is also a subject? When music is not just a passive thing that we hear, but something that responds to us as well. When music says something meaningful, it has more power than a passive noun could possibly have, because there is interaction and vibration, which is a kind of utterance. For some listeners, talking about a world, even if hypothetical, where music is listening to us seems too far out, too unreal. I invite those watching this video to entertain the ideas that might emerge from thinking such a thought, even if the world we are exploring is imaginary. I wonder how we might think about music differently, or learn more about ourselves by giving music agency. For some, this might mean music becomes the confidant, or the lover, the subject with whom one is already in a lifelong relationship. For others, music may become a different active noun, a different relationship. A few years ago, I started thinking that I would like to write a poem about listening. I was making music at the time, so I thought that I would like to write about listening to music, but that idea seemed a bit well-worn. Many people have philosophized, theorized, and analyzed music listening and its effects. And then it dawned on me that I might want to switch the words around. Not listening to music, but the music is listening. I wasn't sure how I could justify the idea. For insights, I started reading a book that a fellow student had told me about many years before, Jean-Luc Nancy's Listening, which ended up being very fortuitous because although Nancy was taking a much different angle than I was, he had many insights that helped me write the poem. The starting point for this whole discussion is something that could broadly be described as so tenuous as to be fantastical. In listening, Jean-Luc Nancy describes these tiny mechanisms in our ear called autoacoustic emissions, where when a small part of the cochlea is stimulated by sounds, its outer hairs vibrate, and these vibrations produce sounds that echo back into the middle ear. In other words, listening or experiencing vibrations makes the cochlea emit sounds which are heard by yet another part of the ear. Nancy also describes how the ear has the capacity to anticipate sounds before they happen, which is symbolic of listening rather than just hearing. It is on the basis of these amazing acoustic functions that I wanted to embark on a thought experiment, to give music all of these capacities, and to turn words and first, second, and third viewpoints on their head. For this poem, I am approaching music's subjectivity from a spiritual angle, treating it as a name or a metaphor for the spirit. If music is only music, the thought of it listening reveals music's impact on our world. If music is also spirit, the thought of it listening reveals music's impact on our inner spiritual world. In this poem, I am describing how intimacy with music unfolds and why it is healing. Many of these ideas are expressed by Nancy himself, to whom this poem owes its debt of inspiration. This is my first reflective video on the 6-track album of poetry and soul music entitled The Music is Listening, which will be released in November 2023. More thoughts are to follow. Thank you.